My sister has a very interesting habit that surprises us, and I want to share it with you and share my own analysis. When her phone battery dies, she just smiles and says, "My battery is dead." She doesn't panic. It doesn't rush to find a charger, it just carries on with the day, acting as if it has been liberated rather than having lost a part of itself. When I ask, "How can you stay so calm?" there is no answer that satisfies me. Because she cannot explain that being unreachable is not a crisis, but just a very short temporary process. Those who grew up in the 1970s carry something that is almost impossible to translate to those born in the digital age. This is not stubbornness, it is not nostalgia, nor is it indifference. It is completely automated, working in the background throughout their lives, and was instilled in them during childhood. There are many similar reactions that we cannot understand, but when I think about it and research it, very different results emerge. Let's imagine this. You're 8 years old. You tell your mom you're going out to play. She nods. You grab your bike and head out to ride around the neighborhood, maybe finding yourself by the creek 3 kilometers away. Maybe you build a cabin in the woods, or maybe you just ride around, feeling the wind on your face. The hours pass, the sun has set. But what about at home? Your mother is making dinner, and you're not wondering where your child is outside, what they're doing, or how they are, nor are you panicking and calling the police or search and rescue team. This was not negligence or irresponsibility. This was the air they breathed. Freedom had a physical texture back then, carrying the scent of cut grass, blending with the metallic taste of rust on the handlebars, or not hurting when the kite string cut your hand. But what did that freedom really give them? An unshakable belief that they could exist independently, that their worth wasn't measured by likes, comments, or filtered photo shares. They knew that being alone with their thoughts wasn't something to fear, but simply a part of life. Today's youth are smart, connected, and amazingly talented. But most of them have no idea what it's like to be truly alone, or it scares them too much. That's why they're always striving to be liked, appreciated, popular, and cool. The parents of the 1970s generation were shaped by war, hardship, and deprivation. Not all of them fought, but all of them were tested in some way. These parents loved fiercely, but in a different way. They showed their love through the care packages they prepared and the clothes they mended, not through conversations about feelings. For example, my sister said, "My dad never asked me how I felt about anything. But when I crashed my bike and bent the wheel, he spent 3 hours in the garage with me trying to fix it. That was his way of saying, 'I love you.'" This silence wasn't cold. The feelings were private, silent, but felt deep down to the bone. You didn't broadcast them. You didn't share them with anyone. You just felt them. And so the children of that time learned to read the world differently. They became interpreters of the unsaid, students of subtle clues. You didn't expect to be asked, loved, or appreciated. You just did what needed to be done.
That's it. Easy now. We have to be very patient.
Back
so it
then,
dries
nothing was
strong.
disposable. When a toy broke, you didn't buy a new one. Your dad showed you how to fix it. When your jeans ripped, your mom taught you how to patch them. When something stopped working, the first question wasn't, "Can we replace it?" but "Can we fix it?" This created a specific kind of confidence, the confidence of creators, not just consumers. These kids grew up to be adults who approach problems with a repairman's mindset. When something breaks, they don't panic. They start looking for tools. There's a deep psychological comfort in knowing you can fix things. This translates into how you approach relationships, your career, even your own emotional landscape. If something breaks, you don't immediately abandon it. You first try to understand it and fix it. They climbed trees that scared their grandparents. They rode their bikes down hills that would give today's parent a heart attack. They got hurt, scraped knees, bruised elbows, the occasional broken bone. And here's the critical part. These injuries weren't considered tragedies. They were simply part of the learning process. When I fell from that tree and broke my arm, my sister recalls, my mother took me to the hospital, had it put in a cast, and the next week I was back outside. She didn't cut down the tree. She didn't forbid climbing. She just said, maybe next time grab a lower branch. This created adults who could instinctively distinguish between real danger and uncomfortable uncertainty. They developed internal compasses that could navigate without freezing in uncertainty. When a crisis hits, they don't wait for instructions. They improvise. Now, fast forward 30 years. Children born after 2000 entered a completely different universe. Before they could walk, screens taught them that the world was fast, responsive, and always available. Information doesn't trickle in. It floods into their brains. Approval doesn't come slowly. It's instantaneous or devastating. These young people are not weak. Let's be absolutely clear about this. They are managing a complexity that will break previous generations. They are expected to be available 24/7 to manage perfect digital identities and to process global tragedies in real time while doing their homework. But here's what's missing: the right to be unreachable, the permission to be imperfect, the ability to get bored without immediately reaching for a distraction. Our nervous systems are constantly overworked. Even our rest is interrupted, scrolling before bed, checking notifications between thoughts. This isn't rest. It's just a different kind of activity. So which is harder? The generation that grew up with less safety net but more freedom, or the generation that has more opportunities but less breathing room? This isn't a competition, of course. I need your comments and ideas too. The 1970s generation speaks the language of resilience. This makes them resilient, but also reluctant to ask for help. They equate fighting alone with strength and fragility with failure. The digital generation speaks the language of connection. It believes we are all connected, that collective action matters, that we deserve the best in mental health. But sometimes this becomes overwhelming: the constant comparison, the pressure to care, the exhaustion of always being visible. Here's something rarely discussed, something most of the 1970s generation would never admit. They are exhausted to the core. They were trained to keep going, not complain, get things done, and they know how to persevere until they reach their goal. That's why they do it. But handling everything on your own is a grinding kind of power. They watch young people talk openly about burnout and mental health, and something inside them feels both skeptical and envious.
We didn't have that.
A part of them says,
Maybe we should have.
we never had that option. Another part whispers, maybe we should have. Those who grew up in the 1970s are now living interpreters. They remember the analog world, the patience of waiting, the creativity of boredom, the comfort of true solitude, the productivity of scarcity. But they also learn to navigate the digital world: emails, smartphones, instant everything. They are neither outdated nor resistant to change. They simply run two different operating systems, trying to run both at the same time. Sometimes this makes them appear slow to adapt. Sometimes it gives them an invaluable perspective. When they are not influenced by technology, it is not condescension. Context. They remember how things were before, so they can see both what has been gained and what has been lost, meaning they can make comparisons. The truth is, both generations need what the other has. The generation of the 1970s needs to learn that asking for help is not a sign of weakness, but of wisdom. That expressing emotions is not self-indulgence, but honesty. That rest is not something earned only after collapse, but rather preventive care. The digital generation needs to learn that not every moment requires documentation, that silence is not empty, but restorative, that you can overcome disappointment without instant validation, that competence comes specifically from repeated failure until you succeed. If you were born in the 1970s, your strength is real, but so is your fatigue. It's normal to admit that carrying everything alone is heavy. The younger generation isn't weak because they share their burdens. Perhaps they're just smarter about distributing the weight. If you were born after 2000, your struggles are those of a truly older generation, even if they don't always understand them. The complexity you navigate, the constant demands on your attention, the pressure to be everywhere and do everything is truly difficult. You are not fragile because you feel overwhelmed. You are human. What separates these generations is not strength or weakness, not talent or intelligence, but the shape of their loneliness and the texture of their fears. Whether silence feels like peace or panic, whether independence feels like freedom or abandonment. Understanding this does not mean that one way is better than another. It means accepting that we are all trying to remain human in worlds that change the rules. And perhaps, if we listen carefully enough, we can learn each other's languages and become fluid in both resilience and fragility, in both independence and connection, in both work and rest. Because the strongest bridge is first listening to each other, then understanding each other, accepting that different realities exist, understanding them, and empathizing with them in order to be much happier together. We could have actually devoted much more time to this topic, but as a member of the 2000 generation, my impatience and the urge to share this video and my thoughts and to hear your thoughts are taking precedence. I hope I've managed to spark your empathy on this topic. See you in the comments. You know how to support me for this kind of content. Stay healthy.